the role that it has played in my life. And I want to share something because one of the messages I want you to go away with today is I'll talk a lot about African Americans from the United States. And why might I focus on them? Why would that be interesting to you? One concept to keep in mind is that I see the African Americans as the canary in the mine shaft. If you're familiar with that, yes. Well, when miners go down underground to very dangerous conditions, quite often they have a canary there in the mine shaft. And as long as that canary is singing and they're doing fine, you know that everything is kind of okay. But if that canary stops singing or dies, you know that there's trouble for everyone that's coming. And so if we look at the lessons of African Americans in the United States, it might give us some hint of some things that we should pay attention to in terms of what is coming or may happen, or things we need to collaborate on and seeing to it that they don't happen to other peoples as well. And so, for one thing I want to point out before I go any further, I noticed just recently, I was looking at a report on the state of California. And I was surprised. It's all over California, African Americans are now 6%, 7%, 8% of the population. In most counties, even Los Angeles County, Oakland, California, I mean places where there's a lot of black people, okay? Now, the statistics are saying there are only 6%. I'm like, wow. There were 15, 12% a little while ago. But as I looked closely at the report, I noticed that there was a new category on the report. Mixed race. They used to be called mulatto or African American, because if you had one drop of African American blood in you, you were African American in the United States. So now, instead of there being 13% African Americans in California, there are 6% African Americans and 7% mixed race. And it says predominantly black and white. Now that wouldn't be so important or anything to think about, except for the fact that in this report, one of the first ones I've ever seen, that had absolutely no major initiatives, policies, or programs planned to meet the needs of African Americans in the state of California from a state level. So now, if in the twinkling of an eye, we can move from 12 to 13% to 6%, then we're not a significant enough population to have to plan policies and initiatives and important programs for. And I thought that was quite interesting. And I wonder how many people looked at the report and caught that fact. Well, we're researchers here, and we would have all caught it. But I am a mixed race woman from the United States. My people come from Choctaw Nation area in Mississippi, Natchez. There's my grandmother, Janie, high cheekbones, interesting characteristics. Never thought of it before, but she has her and my grandpa had 15 children. Beautiful. And those guys, you know, the whole group of them, looked like a small tribe of Native American Indians. And so I look at these pictures differently now. And there's Grandpa. He's certainly mixed race. There's Grandpa and Grandma on the other side of the family. High cheekbones, straight, curly hair. Something's going on here for sure. Well, Grandpa and Grandma Janie and Farrell had 15 children. James and Mary had 8. My dad was the oldest of the 8, and all of those kids went to school in a one-room segregated schoolhouse in Natchez, Mississippi. They've made it a historical site now, but nonetheless, my dad didn't get to finish because he had to go out into the fields and do sharecropping for the family to be able to eat. My mom, bright, she would be in a PhD program. Probably had she gone through a different system, but she was a teacher's aide and helped the young kids to learn to read and write when she was growing up. But the facilities were not great, to say the least. My dad, a World War II veteran, very proud of that. But when he got out of the service, he knew one thing. He wasn't going back to Natchez, Mississippi, the segregated South, where veterans were being lynched by the numbers. And so he took his family to San Francisco, and there we all began, poor as a church mice. Well, we managed. And 50 years later, 3 of us have advanced college degrees, and all of us are doing quite well. And all of our children have college educations. And so, times do change. Those are my partners in crime, my 3 daughters, 2 of whom are professors at universities in the United States, and one has an MBA in her own business. So I'm very pleased to have them hang out with me. And there they are at the best party AERA ever had. Yeah, okay, so we had a good time. Well, as we think about the progress of my family, it's different from many families who started out in Natchez, Mississippi. All of our relatives were part of the Great Migration that left the South, going to Chicago, Detroit, New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. Just getting the heck out of there so that we could have a chance for our families. And because of my experience, I'm very passionate about emancipatory education for equity for all. I know I've been to conferences here and people talk about their mountain and their river. Well, I don't have a mountain, but I do have a tree. The Baobaba tree from Africa. An old Ghanaian proverb says, knowledge is like a baobab tree. Because one person's arms cannot encompass it. If we are going to change education for people around this world, those who deserve a better education, we're going to have to reach out our arms to each other and work together toward making education for all better. And I've learned a lot here in New Zealand about better education. And as you said, there's still a lot of work to be done. But if we can put our hands together, if we can put our arms together, we can encompass that tree and make things better for all. So, as we are educators and researchers here in this room, we can begin to move toward emancipatory education by thinking about our work. Think about your work as an educator, as a teacher educator, as a researcher, as a reflective scholar who is committed to issues of equity and social justice in education and services for people everywhere. That's the passion that drives my work. Think about your own work. Are you driven to think about the work that you do in terms of social education should be a social justice issue. Everyone deserves a good education, to be able to expand their mind, to think, and to contribute. That is not the case for people all over the world. As you think about your research agendas, there's a couple of things that we need to think about. Sorry that writing is so small.